Hello, everybody. I'm Cole Von Glahn. I'm back. I'm a consultant with the Partnership for Public Service, and I am so excited to present the third of our Innovators Hours. For those of you who haven't joined us before, some brief introductions on what we're doing here. The Partnership for Public Service has spent the last 20 years as a nonpartisan, nonprofit supporter of our federal government, mostly focused on workforce development, leadership, and trust in the institution itself. Towards that end, we launched a program with our partners at Microsoft called Modern Government Leaders, where we brought together a group of proven, successful innovators across the senior executive service to share their best practices with each other and develop stories of what it looks like to innovate on service delivery in the federal government to improve what all of us as members of American society receive from our government that works so hard for us. And I'm really excited today to be with another three of these stellar public servants. Before we launch too much further, I do want to note that the views expressed by these folks today are their own personal experiences. These are not necessarily representative of their agency's perspectives. But with that out of the way, I want to introduce you to these three folks. First up, we have Amanda Kupner. Amanda is the Assistant Commissioner and Chief Strategy Integration Officer in the Bureau of the Fiscal Service at Treasury. Next off, we have Chad Clifford, the Executive Director for Grants, Policy Oversight, Effectiveness, and Training in the Office of Grants at HHS. And finally, we have Jen Funk, the Deputy Chief Financial Officer at the Department of Transportation. And in that same order that I introduced you all, I want to kind of just hop straight in and learn what was the issue that you were faced with that you're going to be talking to us about today?
Thank you, Cole. So fiscal service not only serves the American public directly, but we also service many federal and state agencies that have unique and critical missions. So enterprise transformation and driving a culture of innovation has been a challenge for fiscal service. There's been a lack of clear definition of what and how to transform and innovate. Even defining what transformation and innovation is has been a challenge that we've been faced with. We've historically operated in a very siloed manner by business line and supporting areas within our organization, with each area determining and pursuing their own transformation and innovation as opposed to taking an enterprise approach. So a lack of centralization of innovation and transformation has hindered us from being able to transform the enterprise. And we need a central catalyst to guide, inform, facilitate, and really lead the organization through transformation and using innovation. Not transforming, not innovating is a problem because we end up increasing our business processes and our systems complexity while decreasing our ability to be agile and keep up with market trends and meet our customers' needs and expectations. We have seen an increase in failed initiatives and a lack of ideas being able to gain momentum and be implemented to truly drive improvements and needed change. So from this problem arose our story, where fiscal service is embarking on a new way to approach and deliver on transformation and innovation.
All right, I guess I'm next because I'm up on the screen. Hi, everyone. My name is Chad Clifford, and as Cole said, I'm with the Department of Health and Human Services in their Office of Grants. Grants is an enormous federal expenditure. It is way more than government spends on procurement, so buying things. It's over almost $1 trillion a year. Touches every part of the American economy, every local community and state. And it touches everything from research to schools to roads, you name it. Federal grants are helping drive improvements for the lives of American citizens. And there are over 50 awarding agencies. And while Health and Human Services may be the biggest, in fact, we're by far, we got about 60+% of all the federal grant dollars. One of the roles that we have at HHS, as designated by the Office of Management and Budget, is to help drive improvements across the IT systems and solutions landscape that help the 50+ agencies manage the hundreds of thousands of grant awards made every year. And this is something we have called the Grants Quality Service Management Office. And as part of that team, our mission is really to help drive mission delivery improvements, really get more for the grants dollars we give as a federal government by helping offer better tools that help drive better capabilities for federal awarding agencies and grant makers, and also really understanding and then helping reduce the burden that's on grant applicants and grant recipients. It is in that latter role that here at HHS, actually partners from the Department of Treasury, who also make financial assistance awards, and OMB, came to us with what they saw were problems in particularly tribal communities. And this is post-pandemic, where they were seeing in a number of communities, there are a lot of outlying rural areas where there's really low broadband connectivity. They were seeing challenges in post-award reporting, and these are performance reports on awards that have already been made for grants. This is very important for one, fiscal responsibility to help make sure that the federal dollar is being spent well and that the benefits are being received. And two, if the reporting is not done properly or on time, there's some very bad effects for the recipients. They become perceived as risky recipients, funding, that could impact future funding opportunities, and also result in audit issues that could create challenges for those recipients, and also failure delivery on those awards. So they came to us thinking that there was a problem with low broadband in these areas and seeking our team's help because we had developed a reputation of working across agencies and particularly with recipients to help understand the recipients' needs and challenges and objectives, and then trying to help find and drive solutions to help address those problems. And that's what we tried to do.
Hi, everyone. My name is Jen Funk, and I work at the Department of Transportation. And it's nice to be with you this afternoon to talk about the journey that I've been able to share with my colleagues here in the Modern Government Leaders Program over the last 8 months. The problem really revolves around enterprise reporting for grants and just digging into grants management at a project level. So within our office here at the Office of the Chief Financial Officer at the DOT, we have the responsibility of overseeing proper stewardship of the financial resources entrusted to DOT. We conduct rigorous and continual oversight of the department's financial management activities, internal controls, and financial systems. It's our mission to ensure that those resources are managed efficiently and effectively, and managing their impact on communities across the country. And as many of you know, in November of 2021, the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, EJA, or we refer to it as the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law, which is bill, it was passed into law. And so this act provided about $660 billion of new infrastructure investments over 5 years, which represents a once-in-a-lifetime generation investment in our nation's infrastructure and competitiveness. So from the moment the bill was passed, our financial management professionals here at DOT, we worked to ensure that our financial and grant systems were prepared to support the increased demands on award and payment processes for bill grantees. I'm going to be sharing with you our innovative approach to really tracking the projects at a detailed level that deliver bill outcomes, including the status of award-specific goals and objectives, and project-level details to not only meet the Office of Management and Budget, so OMB's reporting deadlines in their newly, now not newly, but back then, their memorandum to advancing effective stewardship of taxpayer resources and outcomes in EJA, but not only the needs of new reporting requirements, but really giving DOT that insight, providing a standard internal display for reporting. So really drilling down to that detail award level project by location, state, county, and facility levels, one that we have never done before. We always talk about programs, but we never really dug into the project level enterprise reporting.
So one of the things that I love about this group is this sort of interconnectedness of your stories around process improvement, but also unifying those process improvements, making sure that people can kind of come back to the same well to draw water, right? And that'll be useful over a long, long time. But it all starts with like a moment of addressing it. It's what's our idea now? How do we get started? How do we move forward? And so I'm wondering if you could talk through for us just how you did initially set out addressing these issues, and where you sort of went from there. And obviously we'll have more conversation about the future, but Amanda, I wonder if you could start us off with the starting point.
Sure, sounds good. So we are really early in the process of really kind of rolling this out and thinking about transformation and innovation services at the Bureau. But we've started with developing a concept to drive standardized, integrated, and results-driven transformation across our Bureau, and doing that by instilling a culture of collaboration and innovation. How we initially got started, after we had leadership buy-in and support and a strong understanding of a vision and a path forward for the Bureau, we started to develop what the approach was going to look like. How are we going to catalyze and drive a culture where continuous improvement is actively pursued across the Bureau? And so our change is as cultural as it is process, which comes with its own complexities and its own considerations that need to be thought through. We need to look at our ability to leverage domain expertise, all of those experts out in our program areas and our mission support areas. We need to leverage them to enable success. So they have to be part of seeing the value and the impact and how we achieve transformation through innovation at our Bureau. It can't just be something that we, again, silo and try to drive with an isolated team. We need to generate flexible solutions that adapt to the current needs and reduce time to market from ideation to implementation. And we need to be more than just the idea makers. We need to actually be able to take things into action and see them through and show the results and the success. So we have to establish clear measures for the transformation process. We have to develop an ecosystem or a system of services and resources and activities that will guide that collaboration, that innovative thinking to create, develop, and sustain transformation and innovation across the Bureau. So this isn't something that you do once and you're done. It has to be very iterative and continuous for us to be successful. We've looked in our approach so far. We've built an approach that is kind of has three pillars, and that's really to rethink the way we do things today, empowering the workforce to become transformation champions, and to really think about the processes that need to be addressed within the Bureau and where there's potential for us within the Bureau. And then this like art of the possible or real imaginative service area, which guides employees through the process of discovering new and different solutions and opportunities, or present creative solutions to problems that exist and change the way that we do business and deliver value. And then lastly, this like engineering component, like research, design, and engineering component, that's really where the collaborative action and implementation in that very reusable way that you just mentioned, Cole, like how can we continually build something that we can leverage past successes and past learnings, also failures, to be successful in the future. And we do that through transformation and innovative solutions. Like I mentioned, our journey is just beginning. We've laid out the foundation for what we want to accomplish, as I just mentioned. We've developed a process and a program life cycle to create normalization throughout each service. We've got a concept approval with our senior executives, and we're working right now on an operating model with all of our business areas so that we can ensure these services are integrated into everyday functions of the Bureau and again reused and normalized into what we do, with the goal of building solid transformation capabilities through innovative solutioning and problem solving at the Bureau.
Very similar to Amanda's journey. When we began implementing the bipartisan infrastructure law, we stood up a grants system committee, and that really had endorsement from the top. This was our deputy secretary actually had, we had support from, but it was chaired by our CFO, our CIO, and DOT's assistant secretary for administration, who really have complementary authorities regarding grants management systems and processes. So we had those champions as the chairs, and that really set the tone. So we also, at a work group level, had partnership with our colleagues in the CIO and in our grants management office. So I co-led the committee's data and reporting subcommittee with our chief data officer. And I can't stress the importance of having other offices buy into your approach. Mm-hmm. And so we began addressing the issue by really gaining buy-in from the operating administrations of DOT, who really are the organizations that create and manage the data that we needed to ensure that we had a more enterprise look at our data. So we collaborated closely to ensure alignment and support of one another, and really interpreting the government-wide reporting requirements. And in particular, we participated in numerous engaged OMB and a reporting pilot with them, with a series of meetings with OMB to really define and understand what they were looking for in their new enterprise reporting. So it's important to really learn from one another and on the details and the outcomes that is required of us. We also set up a series of interview sessions with the operating administrations to really understand what types of data that they're already collecting and how it was being collected, how often it was being collected, and so forth. We knew we had pockets of rich data in each of the operating administrations, and we strategized on how to bring it together. So creating a new system wasn't going to work for us, but how could we meet them and how could we meet the data where it was? So for us, just to summarize, it was really getting others involved, getting the buy-in from the top. And if you can do those things over time, you can really see a culture shift in how you think about data. I think I looked in our tool. We're a little bit further along than Amanda's group. We actually have an internal tool and a look at our construction projects. And I took a look today, took a peek, and there's over 57,000 projects that we're tracking. So it's a big win for DOT.
Wow.
That's incredible. I love when we can pull those moments, those numbers. But I really like your focus on sort of engaging with others and what you need to sort of bring folks in and learn from them. And I know, Chad, a lot of your process was sort of based around that, but kind of very excitingly, yes, with your internal government partners, but also with those that you were serving. Could you tell us a bit about how you went about that process?
No, absolutely. And when I was thinking and listening to Amanda and Jen talk about what they've been working on, very similarly, one, of course, we're being empowered by our senior leaders. And for us, where we're working, with an issue that was brought to our team from Treasury and OMB, we had a lot of interested, very, very high level leaders from HHS, from OMB, involved in the customer experience work OMB leads, the White House and OMB tribal advisor, our stakeholders in the grants community at OMB. And we also reached out and found stakeholders working, at the recipient level, working with, the public and the tribes here at the Health and Human Services with our Bureau, our Indian Health Service, as well as folks in Interior in their Bureau of Indian Affairs. And it's really important for us because we're being given or told what a problem is, and our first action was twofold. It was one, great, we're going to approach this in an agile way and see what we can accomplish quickly. So we can learn, adjust, and then try to actually see what we can help address and improve. But you have to do that. We had to go actually talk to the public, and talk to tribes and tribal members, and so that led us to doing a lot of human-centered design work and customer experience work. We did, I think, almost 40 interviews with tribal stakeholders, both in person and virtual, across the country, from all different tribal communities. Went to 3 different tribal conferences. And then we actually decided we're not just going to learn about this problem, really using that agile methodology. I was very focused and committed to the execs that were sponsoring us here that we are going to try to propose solutions. We're going to pilot those solutions. We may not get it right, but we're going to actually go find out. We're not just going to go study and issue another report that sits on a shelf that no one does anything with. We're going to go and we're going to learn by doing. So we developed 3 different prototypes, try to address what we thought was the root cause of our problem, sort of lack of good internet connections, some of these outlying areas where some of these tribes are located. So we developed, some very fancy tech tools, some optical character recognition tools that would take handwritten reports that once you were connected to the internet could, in a very low bandwidth way, upload them to the relevant system to get your reporting done. Also very sort of tech savvy, using sort of AI software that could then translate voice to text. We developed a whole system of questions and prompts that you could simply, get via call and cell service, which is oftentimes cell service, though sometimes intermittent in some of these communities, could just call in your report, right? How simple could that be if you actually can't upload your report or get strong access to the IT system you need? And finally, we developed an offline report that you could file in a spreadsheet in Excel, which we thought was a pretty low, not very savvy, but we're like, well, this seems simple, so we might as well try that too. And then we tested those prototypes, in addition to the interviews we did with tribal members and tribal grants administrators. We tested them with over 80 different tribal members who actually administer grants on behalf of their tribes at the different conferences that we travel to. And we got a lot of feedback. One, to help us really understand what the problems are, and 2, how these prototypes might be able to actually help them. So really, really learning by doing.
Yeah, and I love the focus here on iteration, right? It's something that has been brought up a little bit by each of you, this idea that you can't just go straight through the marathon. This is more of a relay race. And part of the reason for that is things go wrong. You have setbacks, you have discoveries that maybe one approach wasn't as good as another. And so I'm curious if we could jump into some of those challenges you faced. If you've overcome them, amazing. If you're currently overcoming them, great. What those processes look like. And Jen, maybe from your perspective with, all of this data that you have, we sort of know where some of this has landed, but I'm curious along the way, what did you think might take you off the track?
So, as I mentioned, we actually reached different organizations. They didn't have time to put in the frames just for trying. So, that was something that we had to work quickly. And so we collaborated several key challenges. And some of them range from just analyzing our the employee reporting scenario. So, some projects had location.
Hey, Jen, I'm so sorry. We're getting just a little bit of weird audio on our side. We might take a look at that, and because I don't want to miss any of this answer at all. So maybe I will send it over to Amanda real quick, and then if we could come back to you in a second, that would be great. Sorry about that.
Sure. Is my audio good? Okay. So I will say the problem, we're just still working on ours. Ours is a little bit earlier on. So I wouldn't say we have not solved these challenges yet, but these are challenges that we are faced with. And the one thing I love about this program at the partnership is that one thing I found recurringly every time I attended a cohort session was that there was commonality in the challenges we were being faced with. And that certainly resonated with me as I was thinking through this story. So for us, resources, a lack of resources or resource contention has been a challenge that we've been faced with. Coming up with this kind of a concept and then implementing it requires a lot of resources, especially when it is a broad number of people across the Bureau, as well as external to the Bureau, that need to participate with us in these transformation and innovation services. Prioritization of the work. Everybody has mission critical priorities that they have to deal with. And so making sure that we have the priority and really the push, the momentum that we need to drive these changes across the Bureau. Funding is an issue, again, not a unique issue to our Bureau, but challenges in funding that we don't have the funding that we need in this fiscal year, or maybe we don't have the funding to implement against the way that we want to, and we have to stagger out some of that implementation as a result of funding. I already touched on this a little bit, but buy-in across a large group of stakeholders, and I think Chad mentioned this as well, like where you're not just focused internally, you're not just focused on a small group of stakeholders, you really need to get buy-in from a large number of folks. For fiscal service, we have a slew of external agencies, external partners, fiscal and financial agents, vendors and contractors that we work with, as well as the customer agencies we service and the American public. So we have a very large group of stakeholders that we have to consider and be able to prove the why or the what's in it for me for all of those different stakeholders, and each of their motivations and each of the impact to them is different. And then the last challenge I wanted to mention today is proving the why benefit before the work is done. That is that's a challenge we all face, like building a strong business case and seeing the benefit, seeing what will be realized before you've even begun the work. And one of the ways that we have addressed that challenge is we came up with several different success stories that the Bureau has realized and aligned them to the model of our services. So we were able to demonstrate, hey, we were really successful on project A or project B, and here's how it would have worked had we used the transformation and innovation services to implement this project. Or here's where we already used the life cycle, and here's where we've seen it be successful. That takes some creative out of the box thinking, and it takes some flexibility in our mindsets as far as what a traditional project looks like or a traditional life cycle. It's very agile. And again, speaking to what Chad was mentioning about agile methodologies, really have to think in a different way. And that for us is a culture shift as well, which is another challenge. Anytime you're impacting culture and the way people work, you really have to be methodical and deliberate about those changes.
Yeah, and with a focus on the agile methodologies, we've iterated, we've tweaked, we've met a challenge, we've come back. Jen, let's hear what you have to say.
Okay, I'm just gonna do that. So can you hear me?
It's still a little froggy. It's odd.
Oh my God, I am so sorry.
It's not a problem at all. Let's try one more tweak and we'll go to Chad for now. All right. Awesome. Thank you, Chad.
Sure. Okay, how's my audio? Is that okay? We'll do it. Yeah, good. All right. Yeah, so challenges along the way. Yeah, there were challenges. We had some of the basic presumptions wrong, is what we found out. So again, our project working with tribes and the reporting they have to do after they receive grant awards from the federal government. Our partners came to us and they had identified what is a real problem in a lot of rural communities where broadband simply hasn't reached every last part of particularly rural parts of America, and particularly in really outlying areas. And they gave some examples of tribes in Alaska that are nearly 80 miles from the nearest community that do not have broadband. They have spotty cell coverage. You actually can only get there by plane or boat. And in the wintertime, you're flying in and landing on frozen surfaces if you're on that plane. So there are some real challenges, but actually through our human-centered design work and actually going and talking to humans, right? So like humans have challenges, we should ask humans what their challenges really are. We found that internet, yes, that was an issue, but not their biggest issue. For some, it really was a challenge, but they were finding ways to adapt. Instead, they said, if you're interested, we can tell you all these other challenges that we have. So we started, and this was part of our purposeful interviews that we did, and we found, what were a lot of common challenges that particularly tribal grant recipients have. And when we stepped back after we gathered all the data and really found the themes, we actually found that a lot of grant recipients across all the awards government makes, particularly recipients in poorer communities, low-income communities, rural communities, are all suffering, small communities are all suffering from similar limitations and challenges. And there were 4 big ones. One was staffing at the recipient level, right, in that local community, in that tribe, and turnover of staffing, frequent turnover of the staff that manage awards, having a very small staff that manage awards, and oftentimes individuals maybe who have never managed federal grants before, and all of a sudden have lots of federal cash flowing in through the doors, and there are some rather nuanced rules they have to follow to ensure and comply with all the various laws and regulations. And not having that, it's challenging for those recipients. Second, yes, they have some trouble with internet, but oftentimes they have connectivity. It just may be spotty. It may be not sort of high bandwidth, maybe low bandwidth. And they're looking for offline solutions. So that's good to know. 3, really access to systems and IT systems and actually navigating the federal IT systems landscape. This is something we were aware of from talking to other recipients as part of our role working across government to help bring better capabilities and systems to recipients and reduce that burden. There's just an enormous systems landscape. There are hundreds of public-facing IT systems that agencies run that recipients may have to use. Not hundreds for any single award, but for any one award, they may use anywhere from 4 to 7 different IT systems they have to touch across the life cycle of any one award. And then if you're getting awards from multiple agencies, that can start increasing rather quickly. And for folks where they're having staffing challenges, where they don't have a lot of experience sometimes, they have high turnover, they were telling us some really sad stories of where they're thrown into a job where they haven't done this before. They're a highly capable individual just without the experience, and they weren't left a lot behind from their predecessor to help navigate either A, what federal awards they have, 2, where are we in the process of those awards, and what systems do I need to go to, and how do I access those systems? Like, 'cause a lot of times the authentication of individual tribal members or any recipient is done at the individual level, right? So an individual has to get access to a system, and that's difficult in some of these communities where there are no affixed addresses, where you may not have easy access to driver's licenses, right? Because to get to the nearest DMV in Alaska, I got to fly over 100 miles to get to a DMV, right? So these are challenges just to get to systems. And then lastly, they said and asked, like, why does it take us 9 hours to fill out one report? Why are you asking us 300 questions with different data points? Do you use all this data? Can you make this simpler for us? So looking for ways and asking, reflecting back on the government, can you look and see how do you make it easier for us to work with you, right? So these are some of the common challenges we saw, and that really was really important for us to learn. And we learned that early, in our less than 1 year project time frame, and we were able to then adjust from there.
Wonderful. Thank you, Chad. And after a reboot, we're in phase 3. Jen, let's hear it.
All right, let's test our mics.
Beautiful.
Okay, all right. So let me just try to reiterate. So we knew we had some rich data sets in different parts of the organization, but we didn't have time to build a brand new system just for tracking bill funds. So our team collaborated to solve some key challenges. And some of the things that we discussed was projects with multiple locations or multiple identification numbers, to really establishing consistent definitions of how to define projects versus activities. And so in a large department like DOT, data is captured through a variety of methods and formats. Sophisticated, some had really sophisticated ways of collecting data. Some use their automated grant systems to collect data. And then some of them really have manual process involving emails and spreadsheets. So to effectively plan for a more integrated approach and enterprise level data reporting framework, we started by working with the data owners. So we really really started to understand each organization's current data practices so that we could meet the data where it was. And that foundational knowledge guided us into developing what we now have as our post-award process reporting. So we also realized early on that establishing clear ground rules about data definitions, I know Amanda brought that up earlier, but if you have to really be working apples to apples and standards in a standard way. So by standardizing how the data was defined and categorized, we'd be able to ensure consistency across these different programs. Without it, we risked interpreting data inconsistently. And so that would undermine our effectiveness. So one example that comes to mind is early on, someone raised concerns about maybe misinterpreting the word complete. And that was one of the things that we had to report for OMB was when projects were complete. And so under OMB's reporting guidance, agencies could collect and report on this information the way we needed to. So we had 3 reportable phases: planning, in progress, and complete. And so, like I said, OMB deferred to agencies on how best to define this. And so we debated and had some thorough discussions on how to accurately convey what complete means in terms of our projects, since our projects typically are structured as portions of a larger construction effort, such as one of many phases. So we wanted to really understand and be able to report at an enterprise level, what that meant for projects incomplete. So that was one of the examples that we came together, we understood the data, and we were able to report in an apples to apples approach.
Wonderful. And a big part of what we get out of understanding all of that data is understanding what was the impact we had, right? And I'd really love to look at that. I mean, we just talked about some challenges, we talked about some tough stuff. And so let's look at what really went well and where you've seen these things realized out in the world. And Chad, I know you quoted a 9-hour number a minute ago, and I think you have an update on that number that I find very exciting. Would you mind going through some of the impacts that you've discovered?
Yeah, so look, once we better understood what the needs and challenges were of these tribal grant recipients, we pivoted. We ditched the fancy pilot, prototype tools that did the optical character recognition and the voice translation to texts and upload. We kept the Excel spreadsheet. That was easy. People were like, yeah, we all have Excel. That's simple. Great. Give us that. We can use that. And they asked us, how can you help address these other problems? And for one great example, why so many questions, government? What do you do with all this data? Do I need to spend 9 hours? And 9 hours it's not a fabrication. It's not an exaggeration. This is the actual amount of time recipients were spending filling out one report for one grant. Some of our partners at the Indian Health Service here at the Department of Health and Human Services, they were working on this already. And when we found and partnered with them, they said, great, this is an opportunity for us to be able to lock in some of the changes they were proposing to some of their reporting for some of their programs. They got that from 9 hours down to 3 hours. Right? And that's if every question applies to you. For some, it's even faster, right? But that's a huge change. I mean, I hate filling out tax forms. I hate filling out forms for my kids' schools that they, just repeating the same data over and over again. So as a citizen, I know how frustrating and challenging it can be working with government and bureaucracy and forms. So it makes my heart feel good as a public servant that we can do this work, right? And have a real impact, which is going to impact all those recipients. And it shows what's possible when we can be reflective to ourselves about what we are doing with our programs and how we administer them, and thinking about with the intended outcome and frankly, the user first, right? We should be a user-focused government, right? We should be making it easier for citizens to work with government, seeing where the risk is and how we work with them, and not just risks to stop them from doing bad things and losing money, right? But how do we identify the risks to help them deliver on their awards, right? And really lessening that burden. So that was fantastic. In addition, we developed a couple other pilot solutions that are still in effect and use today. And this is after, in frankly, less than 6 months, because this is a total 10-month project that we did. We turned them around. And so one, we did the reduction in the reporting burden. Two, that offline report we created in Excel, that's in use today by Treasury. They're still using it. They even got it approved by their lawyers, which is like a huge hurdle to go out and be used in lieu of the OMB approved forms, right? Like in submission of this report, which is a huge win for government, right? Why do we make it so complex? And also that issue where recipients, tribal recipients and others were identifying challenges of navigating the IT environment that federal agencies require recipients to use for any one award and frankly multiple awards. Make it easier. We had one in one of our human-centered design sessions, someone actually took out a napkin and we took a photo of this. And they had been working for a tribe for almost 10 years. And they drew out a systems map with logic gates, for all the different awards from all the different agencies. And they showed it up. And I don't know, it was a mess. It looks like one of those like PowerPoint slides I see the military put up about if we could only figure out all these problems, we would resolve this issue. So we started to, we've created a beta version tool that lives today. You can go to grants.gov, and if you look under the systems tab, we have what we call our federal grants systems hub. And what it does is it pulls together from all the data that for all federal awards, which is already commonly collected in this thing called USA Spending, which is run by colleagues of Amanda's over at Treasury. Fantastic place to go and visit if you're a data nerd or just love grants or how the government spends money, by the way. We pull that data and overlay it with all the grants systems mapping that our team has done across government. And we've been able to identify, you can pick any recipient, right, that's been given awards in the last 5 years. Click it, see it, identify it by name, identify it by the unique identifier, see all their awards they've received, see the agencies those awards come from, and have live links right to those IT systems that they use for that award, right? And also the help desk numbers if you're having problems getting into that system or not sure how to navigate through that system and find what you need to do. And our feedback from our human-centered and user sessions with that one was enormously positive. It was like 9s out of 10s or all 10s, right? Someone gave it an 11. It's like, great, like this is so great to help me just do my job so I can more quickly and easily find what I got to do next, right? Again, sort of simplifying, how we work with government. So our tools are already out there. We then compiled all this into a report. Yes, we produced a report, but it's not a report, it's telling others what to do. We actually use an example of, hey, here's what we learned from talking to humans, right? We're a government of the people, by the people, for the people. You got to go out and talk to the people and actually see what their challenges are. And then you got to design your work to actually address those problems. And that's what our report shows we did. And it shows what we did, what we learned, what we got wrong, and then what we got right, and at least what worked for us. And offers a way for others across government to expand the impact, right? Because oftentimes what I've been seeing in my job, others have already tried things I've never heard of. When I found out about it, I'm like, great, we should try that too. So we have tools that people are using, and then we have ways we've offered others ideas that show that can work that they can try too.
Incredible. And we're going to return to this idea of offering one another ideas. I know, Amanda, you mentioned that was some of the work we'd done in MGL together. But also, I just want to sort of follow the shout out train. So Chad has already said, folks at Department of Treasury are amazing. So Amanda, do you want to talk about some of the impacts that you've been having over there?
I love Chad's story. And actually, the whole time I'm sitting there, I'm thinking what Chad and his team have achieved is really the dream and the vision of my story. It's like the more mature, realized end of it. So ours is not yet implemented, but there's a lot of similarities there in making sure that people can work effectively, giving them more simple and effective ways to do what they need to do, standardizing and integrating and driving results into our transformation to be able to actually transform. I mentioned earlier a lot of kind of threads about culture, driving a culture of high collaboration, high engagement, and being innovative. Really, for me, generating a lot of energy and momentum and engagement across the workforce to use creativity to be able to fail, feel safe to fail and fail fast, and then work on problems outside of their day-to-day. I think there'll be huge benefit to the Bureau in doing that, with a highly engaged workforce, a highly creative, innovative workforce who's focused on the future of the Bureau, who's focused on transformation. That will not only benefit us as a Bureau and make us stronger and deliver better services, but it'll also help all of our customer agencies that we support and through all of the services that we support. So I'm really looking forward to this and our ability to achieve and realize this, and hearing Chad's successes and the impacts that he's seen. I'm like, that's all the things that we want. That's all the things that we want out of this transformation and innovation service, is to be able to deliver exactly as he was saying. So I'm really charged and energized by hearing Chad's story, and appreciate you turning it over to me.
Similarly, I just wanted to talk about the impacts that we've had, and thanks to our strong collaborative approach, the impact of our project, it's been profoundly positive. And I just wanted to mention that this morning we had a strategic session with our steering committee that I mentioned earlier with our 3 chairs, and we were reflecting on the work that we've done in FY24 and really looking ahead to what we're going to be able to tackle in 25. And we got a comment from one of the chairs that we actually not only just came up with a post-award reporting process, but we actually changed DOT's culture and grants management about really thinking about project level reporting versus what we've always been doing, which is program level reporting. So I think that just speaks to the volumes of the impact that our team has had on DOT's reporting capabilities at an enterprise level. So just with that said, we were able to develop just an entire new process for collecting and interpreting program data at the project level. We created an internal dashboard that provides clear and actionable insights from the data, just really facilitating those informed decision-making discussions across the organization at large. Our approach allowed us to integrate data into other internal processes, ensuring that all systems work cohesively and efficiently. So just as important, we were successfully able to meet our external reporting deadlines to OMB. So that just demonstrates our commitment to transparency and accountability. So this effort not only streamlined our data management practices, but it also reinforced our capacity to deliver timely and accurate reports. Our internal dashboard, it provides a standard display for DOT's post-award reporting. It presents projects by location, state, county, facility levels. It allows DOT's leadership to explore the operating administration's data at the program and project level in really in that detail level. It provides overviews of obligation amounts and really where the project phases are, whether it's in planning and process completed. So I just want to say we had a profound impact throughout our organization, and all of this was achieved within 14 months of OMB's guidance that was outlined for Aegis. So we're very proud of that. And like I mentioned earlier, just took a peek today and has over 50,000 projects that reporting for 74 of these big bill funded programs. So we're really proud here at DOT.
Really wonderful. It's wonderful to hear, right? I think oftentimes there's a kind of meme in the culture that government can't move quickly enough to sort of address these kinds of issues. And it's really wonderful to get that time frame of 14 months, over 50,000 projects, all of the things that have happened as a part of that is a really useful framing device to say, like, actually, yeah, with bipartisan sort of support, we can move forward pretty quickly on major infrastructural needs. So I just have one last question about your particular stories, and then we'll look at some themes that kind of connect innovation for you all. And it's, what's the biggest lesson? What can others take away from your experience? You know, imagine that you were telling this to another senior executive who's like, I want to launch something. What did you learn that could help me do this? Amanda, would you mind starting us off on the launch pad here? And then I think we'll go Jen and then Chad.
Sure, Cole. Thank you. So I know we've already touched on it. All three of us have mentioned it today at different points, but thinking about innovation in an iterative way, oftentimes we try to take such a huge chunk of work or drive such a large effort that we almost don't set ourselves up for success. And I think thinking about how to iterate through whatever you're trying to accomplish is important. Setting out first with a clear vision on what you're trying to solve or improve for, making sure that vision aligns with the direction of your agency and with its customers. So you have a selling point for that goal. You need to be able to demonstrate clear alignment and make sure that you're prepared to promote and sell the vision, and also to adapt and adjust. Oftentimes we set out with an idea or have a particular concept in mind, and it maybe doesn't align, or it doesn't, there's changes and transitions in leadership or in administration or other things going on across the government that affect your vision. And you need to be able to be flexible and agile in your approach. The thing I liked a lot about this partnership program was the development of our stories. Sitting down and actually being able to tell a good story on why this effort is a benefit was a huge benefit to me personally, as I was just embarking on this story for the Bureau. So sitting down and being able to show it in action, really tell, think through the characters of your story, all of the people that are impacted or need to be involved, the journey that you're going to be on to realize this benefit, from building the business case to actually implementing. All of that was very, very helpful to me, and something I hope to carry on in the future as well. And then kind of lastly, being open and transparent on progress and setbacks. Too often we're afraid to share our failures or to share various setbacks or obstacles and challenges that we have. And I think enlisting a wide network of people to support, advise, and guide along the way gives them a stake in your success, but also builds a really strong, large network and safety net for you as you progress throughout your initiative. And so that's what I'm working on right now, kind of building that network and bringing in that wide network of supporting folks on our operating model. But it's something that I've certainly learned along the way, is that the more people that you can involve and engage while you're thinking of a concept early on, the more support and help you'll have along the way. And you'll also have champions and allies in whatever you're trying to accomplish as well. And that's been very beneficial to me on this effort so far.
Yeah, we've heard that word champions a couple of times, which I really love. And actually, incidentally, the original name of this program was Innovation Champions. Fun fact, before it all made it to your desks. Jen, would you mind taking the next shot on what the biggest lessons from your experience have been?
Sure. I think for me, a valuable lesson from our experience is the importance of meeting the data where it already exists. And oftentimes, we don't have time and money to invest in these big enterprise projects. So instead of that, maybe you can think about, focusing and meeting where the data already is. Like I said, we have a lot of rich data in DOT. And we focused on integrating and working with the data in its current forms. And by doing so, we saved resources, but also allowed us to leverage existing structures and processes. And we demonstrate that sometimes the best solutions are those that build on what you already have. So I think that's a big one and a big takeaway. It helped us bolster stakeholder confidence in our ability to report on new large-scale and time-sensitive programs. And so I think that lays the foundation for ongoing improvements. And we've already started taking on other projects. We've been in this post-award process for probably going on 2 years now. And so really kind of laid the foundation of us being able to have the confidence to take on other projects. And we're kind of doing that now. By doing that also, you can take that group, the Grant System Steering Committee in our case, and kind of, we do it on an annual basis, but recommitting, what did we achieve over the last fiscal year? And we really take that annual look to kind of recommit on our projects that we're going to do, the next fiscal year, and really who are those folks that you're engaging with at the, in our case, the operating administrations, like who's going to be engaged in your process and be able to take on those new projects. Also, just underscoring the critical role of early buy-in. So when you're starting these projects, you have to have that early buy-in and collaboration. We worked really closely with our Chief Data Officer, Dan Morgan, and we have two data scientists, Corinne Armour and Grant Peters, and we really pulled together to get this work underway. And just that collaboration piece, I can't stress enough. So those were the things that I think that is the big takeaways here. Kind of do a canvas of what you have. You don't need to always build these big elaborate systems. You can take what people have and be innovative in the way we did and just kind of meet the data where it was. So I think that's the key takeaway for us. And that's why we've been so successful in being able to do this in such a short amount of time.
Yeah, all the lessons here from Amanda and Jen, I would echo all of them. So I'm not gonna try not to repeat sort of the same things. So things we learned, things I learned to emphasize with my teams that we did here, innovation. I work a lot with IT system owners, folks that use IT, commercial developers that provide services, IT systems for our recipients, for the government. I've been pitched so many blockchain based tools and systems that will solve and fix everything. I've been pitched so many AI based tools and systems that will solve and fix everything. Innovation doesn't have to be fancy new tech, right? Or fancy new tools. It absolutely is. Don't get me wrong. I love it. I'm a tech nerd myself in my work and personal life. They are amazing tools. But sometimes, innovations, one, need to focus on what's the problem? Like, what's the problem statement that we're trying to address? Like, what's the challenge? Like, do we really understand what the challenge is? And focusing on the impact on the humans. It's called human-centered design for a reason, because it's focused on human needs, human challenges, human objectives. What I've seen over, what is becoming longer and longer government career is government has set expectations of what they think the challenges are. It may have been accurate once, maybe based on past data. We really need to lean into more regularly, more consistently, making sure we actually talk to our stakeholders, talk to our users, talk to our, my Fed partners, talk to other Fed leaders. Like I talk to Jen pretty frequently, actually. We're in the same community here. Talking to the users on the end users, the recipients of our grants, and really understanding, hey, these are what we see as your challenges. Is that still true? Is that true for you in your circumstance? Is that true for your peers that you talk to? Or what it's like? Who else should I talk to learn more about these challenges you have? And that's an innovation government can easily do, right? And it's also a way, I think, for government to help build trust with the public and show that it's working with the people's interests first. Yes, and then of course, once you know what those challenges are, bring the tech if it can solve it. If not, don't ignore that innovation can also be really sort of seemingly basic things. And some of the, it may not sound as fun or as exciting as a new tech tool with lots of money behind it, but policy work is hard. Done policy work for many years. It's hard because you got to focus on the end users and the outcomes, and it requires thought and writing and rewriting, right? But this is essential work. When our partners in Indian Health Service reduced some of their reporting requirements from 9 hours to 3 hours, it was through hard, laborious work of individuals, right? Working with teams, with recipients, with program managers who manage programs and data users, right? To understand, what do you really need? How are we using this? How can we more easily ask this? Those are questions that maybe tech can help us with, but a lot of times it's actually just going back and really analyzing the logic models for our programs, understanding what the outcomes are. Are we really measuring what we're getting, right? Are the measurements we're measuring actually the right measurements? Help us inform how to improve the programs we have. Very important. And like the others, yeah, iterate fast, right? Iterate quickly, start small. We did it in less than a year. Be okay to struggle, maybe fail, right? And make sure you have leaders that can help you do that and give you that breathing room, so that you can, and not just fail, then adjust, right? Like make sure you're able to pivot and adjust.
Yeah, so I'm hearing a lot in there about sort of work with what you already have. Don't overcomplicate this process. Look at the toolkit that already exists, the resources, the people, all of those things. And all of that kind of leads into this second piece of innovation, which is sustaining it, right? Eventually, everything isn't new anymore. And so when you get to that phase, what do you think are sort of the keys to sustaining an innovative program or process once the shine is off, to put it that way? Jen, maybe your work here has been going for a little bit longer, and you might be able to give us some insight into sort of how you've kept it going when it wasn't the absolute spotlight.
Sure. I think I talked a little bit about this, but I think what's really important is regularly evaluating your program's impact and really share the results with the stakeholders. We have a grant system steering committee once a month, and we've kept it going. We have a pause during kind of this time frame to really take stock in the achievements that we have had over the past year and what we're going to focus on for the future. So I think really setting up an organization or like a charter to where you kind of get in a regular groove of doing things. But I think that's important, and really, like I said, demonstrating, what are the benefits that we have been able to achieve, or what are the benefits that the organization is reaping from your process. But I think what goes along with that also is celebrating successes and learning from the failures that Chad just talked about that, but learning from those failures to maintain some of this enthusiasm and drive. You also need to recommit. I think we recommit and ensure that we have the right stakeholders involved on an annual basis. Do we have the same folks that we need for some other projects that we're going to tackle? So just basically recommitting, and do you have the right people in place? I think also what's important is maintaining partnerships with other organizations. We have a really great, strong partnership with the organization that is over grants management in our organization, Rhea Hubbard. And I think it's important to ensure that you have connectivity there and you're maintaining those relationships. And like I also mentioned, our CIO partners, we have Jack Albright, who is our deputy CIO, and I mentioned our CDO. So we have a strong relationship with those. And so we can foster innovation through things that are already happening in the department, networks, communities, just to ensure that we're staying inspired and informed about what the other arms of the organization that have equities in this are doing. So I think it's really important for maintaining those relationships. But again, just recommitting to the cause, and with that, we were able to really, drive our innovation projects here. So I think that's important.
I know we're coming up on time here, so I'll just be really brief. And I had a lot of the same things that Jen had, as far as continued measurement of our outcomes, open communication to share successes, reevaluation of the program is what we're striving to achieve, still hitting the mark. Is that the direction we want to go? The two that I had that were a little bit different, kind of thinking about our services model, is, as I mentioned, finding ways to normalize and standardize into operations. It has to be just the way we work. It can't be its own special project, this special funding, special project kind of set aside. Innovative programs really need to find a way as quickly as possible to be normalized into operations. And then lastly, the other item that I had that was a little bit different is, looking at your reusability and how you account for, report on that, and continually evaluate it. For us, we've established an innovation inventory, and we're looking at like the different parts of the innovative life cycle, transformation and innovation life cycle, where various efforts are. And some may drop, some may not be successful, and some may just have to be shelved. But we've documented those, we've maintained those, so that we can demonstrate our work, and we can demonstrate things that we've explored, or things that we can revive, and have sort of that repository of lessons learned and documents and various outputs that were generated, so we can reuse those across our organization.
Yeah, what's the key to sustaining innovation over the long haul? All great things to keep in mind, right, for other leaders, and from Jen and Amanda. For me, it's focused on the people. Right, innovation comes from people, right, and diverse ideas, and being open to their feedback and different perspectives, and building a team with a culture and where they see it as their mission, right, and goals to be not just the stewards of process and the stewards of government, but to help improve how the government works and how government works with people that it's trying to serve. Really helping motivate the people on your teams to do that, right? Like, in seeing, there's this great story of JFK walking around the halls of the Houston Space Center, and he talks to the janitor, and he's like, "Hey, what do you do here?" And he's like, "I'm helping get a man to the moon." Right? Because like his mission, right? Like, yeah, everyone has a role and a part to play in an essential job. But if they understand why we're here and what we do, make it a core and essential thing in terms of how we work. Also, get people to see the impact. That means actually getting out and seeing humans sometimes, like talking to people. Virtual is great because we can talk to people very easily. Sometimes you got to go talk to the people face to face. We did that in our project. Actually, some of my team members got to go fly to Alaska, fly to Sleep Village, 80 miles away from the nearest community. Took a very small plane, had to balance the weight in the plane so it didn't crash. But going firsthand and seeing what it's like to live in that village for a few days, and what it's like to be one of those tribal members, and really understand the impacts that government can have for good and for not, right? In terms of how we require them to work with us, right? It can really bring people back and center them to understand what our job as public servants really is.
Fantastic. And no better note than to end on focus on the people, because that's what I know all three of you do every day, is focusing on serving the American public, just like all the other folks in Modern Government Leaders. And I've learned an immense amount from all of you over the course of the last 8 months, as I hope our audience did today. So I just want to thank you all so much. For those of you watching, if you are interested, we have one more of these tomorrow, 11:30 a.m. Eastern Time, and then we'll be releasing the whole sort of set of them as a library with some write-ups. We'll include a link to some various reports you may have heard of, and other elements of just how to innovate at this level in the federal government. But just one last time from me and the whole partnership, thank you all so much for joining us. It's been a wonderful conversation, and I look forward to our paths crossing in the future.